Hello everyone, here today I'll be doing a review on some of Oda's best art as part of the Mangaka Review series, where I look over coloured illustrations and break down components in correlation to design principles. And I plan to actually do Togashi first, who is known for Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho if you didn't know, but if I'm being honest, during the research process I couldn't find enough illustrations that I guess you could say were video worthy and I could actually go in depth to, like on previous artists I have. However, with Oda there is just hundreds upon hundreds of colour illustrations he has done over the years, so there was a plethora of work to go over. And if there is another artist or manga series, especially some fresh ones, straight out of the oven, you would like to hear my thoughts on whether it just be a general review or if you want them in this series particular, let me know in the comments of the artist or series, and if that comment gets a lot of likes and pushed up in the comment section, I'll know more clearly how many people would be interested in it and I'll just prioritize it over others. And that is part of the reason this video actually came to be in the first place, as there have been several of you who have been requesting me to do a review on Oda's art for quite some time now. And additionally, I like to also keep content fresh and talk about a different series for a change. But with that, let's now get into the video. So right off the bat, I'll be honest, I haven't actually watched One Piece. I have skimmed through a chapter or two, but that was a while ago, so if I pronounce any characters' names wrong, sorry in advance. And I'm going to start off with probably my favourite one I've seen so far, and I just love how dynamic and how much movement this piece has. But let's get more specific to why this piece is great. So we have several secondary focal points in this one, being the Mammoth and Zoro. And the main focal point of this piece is Luffy, which is clearly illustrated by being isolated as he is in the air, whereas the rest of the cast is positioned below and on the lower half of the picture plane, isolating him. And there is also a good contrast of colours. As you can see, Luffy has a lot of red and orange tones, and red is one of those colours that always grabs a bit of attention. There's also the aspect of using the unusual to draw you into the focal point, and although there are some wacky and unusual things in this drawing already, one thing that stands out is this massive wooden club, and what further draws you in is all the detail to it, which just demands that extra bit of attention to this character. But additionally, having a massive mammoth trunk right near the character is just another thing that draws you in even more to this area. Furthermore, there is also a good balance of visual weight. So for example, imagine if Luffy was on the same plane as the rest of the crew and we removed the mammoth. Because the major elements would be at the bottom, it would draw our eye just more to the bottom area of the page, and it can make this piece feel a little boring and unsettling even. Whereas by having two characters up here and several on the bottom, it distributes the weight within the illustration, making it just that bit more pleasing. But let's not forget the greatest part of this piece, and that is the movement. And so the reason why we have a lot of movement is because of the clearly defined focal points, as I've already just discussed, but it is also because of the guiding lines. So let's see how these elements complement each other. So first off, your eye is most likely drawn to Luffy, then due to the trunk being right next to him, as I said, being such a large and unusual object, but the trunk itself also acts as sort of a guide and draws you briefly over to his eyes, and you can't help but look in the direction of those eyes, and also having such massive teeth and this huge grin, and there being a lot of white in this area in contrast to all the brown tones we see used for this creature, we are drawn further down, as well as the tusk acting as sort of a guide itself, which leads us directly to Zoro, and then down to the other characters, then past Chopper and up back to the main focal point, Luffy. So you have this beautiful motion, and once or twice my eye might have caught Zoro first, but regardless, it still takes the viewer on a very similar journey. And extra elements such as the vehicle and characters being lifted up off the ground additionally adds to this movement. And let's get on to the second piece. So this one once again has a lot of movement to it, and the focal point is also clearly defined, with Luffy slightly off to the center. And even though there are a lot of characters with heaps of detail and many with vibrant tones, it still doesn't retract from the main focus point. And this is because Luffy doesn't have as much detail to him, but more so this area here isn't saturated with these vibrant tones. So by doing this, your eye kind of looks for somewhere to rest with all the detail surrounding it, and that is right around here. Furthermore, there is also a lot of white from the clouds, which does stand in contrast to the vibrant tones seen as well. And the path your eye takes is quite a simple one this time, but it is effective, and it starts simply with Luffy and down to Franky catching this iron spiked soccer ball, then following the direction of Franky's body and the string of the net, it draws you briefly to several other characters and then back to Luffy. But some additional points I like is the perspective of this piece. It's quite different and adds well to the scene. And one thing I liked when I was a kid was with illustrations, and especially like Where's Wally for example, which is just one I remember off the top of my head, is that I enjoy looking at all the action hidden in the background, and this piece kind of brings back that feeling, such as seeing Usopp hanging off the tree and some foul play in the background. But I actually noticed when zooming in and taking a closer look at Sanji that he's actually just kicked the ball, and it seems that Usopp actually dropped the ball as illustrated by the white lines, which I didn't notice at all before. And so if you look at the path the ball takes, it creates this really cool moment in time, and is another reason I like to take a closer look at illustrations like this one. And quickly onto something simple, and I included this one briefly just to diversify things, but I really love this piece simply because of the composition, how you have the hat separating Luffy from the other characters above. Additionally, you have a nice bit of flow here as you start with Luffy, then come around past the hand, and come to the other characters and to the additional focal point, with his importance being illustrated by the other characters behind having more washed out tones and him being placed in the center. And I also really like how three-dimensional Luffy feels here, illustrated well by the shading. Now onto the fourth piece, and what grabbed me most about this one is just how dynamic Zoro is drawn. I mean, the way the sheath just sticks out as well as the sword handle, and his whole body language is just really well executed and unique. And you also have a lot of the hippo shaded out with a white pencil around where Zoro is in order to make him not blend into the background, and additionally you have him placed right in the center, drawing your eye to him first. And the movement to this piece is done quite well. You start with Zoro, then to Sanji, then over to Luffy as he's leaping through the air past the hippo. Then this contraption captures your eye immediately, especially with those bright orange tones. Then you come down to this boat and back to Zoro again. And again, like I mentioned with the first piece, you have elements like this bicycle, for example, suspended in the air, and by having other characters like Luffy in the air as well, it just adds to the movement and framing a moment in time just before all the action is about to start. He also seems to use a triadic color scheme for this piece, which has provided some good color harmony. And on to the final piece, and the fact that this piece has koalas in it, I mean, bumps it up to 11 out of 10 already. Definitely the best piece he has ever created. But in all seriousness, one thing this piece has is a lot of rhythm, and in particular flowing rhythm, which is in regards to the roller coaster rails going in this spiral motion all the way back to the island, and the focal point, that being Luffy, is clear by one having a bit of the unusual, which is the koala beside him. But also in this area here, there is not a lot of detail surrounding him compared to a lot of the rest of the cast on the back seats, which do. Furthermore, he is at the front, so that always helps, and you have a lot of red in this area, which again is one of those colors that just grabs attention. Whereas if you used red for the end here and more light greenish tones at the front, you'd be more drawn to the characters in the back first in some ways. And I think that this piece just has a lot of movement, which is aided by the roller coaster rails spiraling in this circular motion, as I just mentioned. And one thing that caught me was how exaggerated the characters like Usopp and Zoro are, and I love how there's this barbecue going on in the back here, which I thought was pretty cool. And I also noticed this pattern of happy, scared, and then happy right at the end here. So yeah, overall this is just another great piece packed with a lot of movement and excitement. And with this final piece, I'll conclude the video. And if you would like a part 2 reviewing more work, let me know in the comments, and maybe link or mention some specific pieces you would actually like me to review in particular. And I guess overall thoughts on what I've seen so far is that Oda packs a lot of expression into his characters and makes use of a lot of wacky contraptions, which always creates interest. Additionally, he has a lot of motion and energy to his work, and much like Toriyama, he captures that moment in time, so to say, right before everything is about to go down. Although one negative I will mention is that sometimes in his pieces he can get a little too overcrowded, and that balance of positive and negative space is lost. But yeah, overall I'm quite impressed and even motivated now, and I'll be honest, I was never a huge fan of his style before, but when looking at these illustrations for this video, I think I've come to like his work a lot more, and I'm actually quite interested in perhaps watching or even reading One Piece now. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon.